It's great to be here with you today on our podcast, His Heartbeat, a ministry of Crown of Beauty International, where your questions about life's challenges are explored through God's Word so He can renew and restore us in the truth of His love. His Heartbeat for you. Let's get started. Here's our host and good friend, Sue Corl.
Welcome back, everybody, to His Heartbeat. Great to be back with you again. And once again, we have a new topic with a wonderful guest, Ingrid Hanson-Popp. Love that last name. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ingrid's a little more European sounding. But
yes, Ingrid is Swedish. I get mistaken for German all the time because it's also a German name. But Ingrid, I was a surprise baby, and my dad gave me that name. My dad was a pretty basic guy, deep but basic, and Ingrid means daughter in Swedish.
Oh, okay. So you have Swedish background?
I'm 3/4 Swedish and 1/4 Finnish.
Okay, wow. You should be in Minnesota.
I know, right?
But you're near Milwaukee, you had told me earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha. Wisconsin. Cool. Well, she has a lot of interesting things to say today about caregiving. And when I first was reading about you, I was thinking like professional caregivers, but yours is more we're just talking about what it is like and how to be successful, if we can even use that word, or how to thrive is the word you use. I like that better. How to survive and thrive when we're in the position of being a caregiver. Now, we're caregivers really for our kids, but we're going to focus more today on our parents and, and then the loss of our parents and then what we do with that. And like a close friend of mine, she lost her mom when she was in her late 20s, I believe. So, whoever's listening, you either have faced this, are facing it, the whole taking care of parents as they're older, or you're starting to think about it. And sometimes we think about it too early, and our parents don't like that.
No, they do not.
So let's roll into that. We have a lot to talk about that. But share first your own story and what really gave you a passion to write a book about this.
Sure. So let's see. In 2019, I finished my first book. I'm going to grab it off the shelf here. Cellophane Farm. And Cellophane Farm is my mom's memoirs, essentially. Life in the Slow Lane is a picture of my mom and I in the back.
Okay.
And that is it's an aerial shot of our farm. She had always wanted to write a book about her life. And as she aged, but it was a simple life. She wasn't famous. She wasn't infamous. She didn't have a college degree. She led a simple life, but a very impactful, fulfilling, content life. So at any rate, she had a dream about writing her book, but I think most of the organizational genes kind of skipped my mom, let's just say, and they came to me. And I thought, from a practical side, I said, her eyesight was going and she could type, but she didn't even have a typewriter anymore. She didn't use computer. I'm like, you know what? That's not ever going to happen unless I help her.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I'd never written a book before. I'm like, well, that's kind of my family heritage is other people write books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'll figure it out, I guess. So
it's a good reason to write a book. You don't have to write a book to become famous or have, 50,000 sold. You can write it just to have, like you said, your heritage, because you can self-publish. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And what's interesting is that it wasn't until I was proofreading, I won't get stuck on that book because we're trying to get to the second book, but it's connected. The last times I was proofing Cellophane Farm, I realized as I was weeping, looking at my computer, I'm like, because mom had passed by then.
Wow.
It was, thankfully I have my older brother and sister with really good memories, and they're a lot older than me to fill in some of the gaps.
Did you interview her? Is that what you did?
That's how I started.
And you put it on tape, or you're taking notes, or how?
I was taking notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is, by the way, y'all, that's a really cool thing to do. But, start when your mom's younger and can remember stuff. because
Yes.
now that my mom's gone, I'm thinking, I wish I asked her blah, blah, blah,
I have that too.
I
Absolutely.
know.
And I have friends who are starting to do just short videos of,
Mm, good.
they just hit the camera and talk with mom or dad. And it is important to start soon enough. Now,
Mhm,
mom was mentally with it all the way to the end, but
mhm,
I asked some of her friends, well, actually her best friend, for an interview, and she said, I don't think so. It was just too, it was too late. It was too, she was, you
yeah,
know, she
yeah.
just wasn't engaged anymore. So at
Mhm,
any rate, so when I did my launch parties and released that book, I had to do a book release in my hometown because that's where our home church was, and mom and dad had lived there their whole, like, whole lives. And then I did a launch party here in Waterford, and I had people I knew, people I hardly knew, acquaintances. When I would talk about this book, they would launch into stories about their own parent because they figured out obviously that I was helping mom at her end.
mhm,
And they would launch into these stories, and every single incident was full of stress. Whether it was, oh my gosh, my mom just fell and broke her hip. We don't know what to do. Oh, my mom passed. Now dad's alone. We're not sure what to do with dad. Or
yeah.
dementia. And do we put them in a home? Do we try to take care of them? What do we do? Where do we go? And it was this massive stress level. And I could just hear God's voice. Yeah, there's something here. Because these people telling the stories were hardworking, intelligent, practical people,
Mhm,
and they're at a complete loss
mm,
in this circumstance when it starts coming to these things with aging parents.
mhm,
So I thought, yeah, I think there's something there. So I thought about my own story of losing my dad when I was young and then mom. And I thought, my first thought was, I got off really easy, essentially. And secondly, as well, those are good stories. And I learned some things. A lot of things I think I did well with my mom were by accident. I'm like, so I didn't have any regrets. I'm like, phew,
mhm,
that was good. So I knew I needed to broaden my base of experience to get tips and helps and stories. What did other people with different circumstances, what did they learn? What did they do well? What were their regrets and they wished they had done well?
mhm,
And the clincher was I just have to tell the story because it's just so my first online sale of Cellophane Farm, I went to our little post office there, and the clerk, whose name was Lynn, I couldn't contain my excitement, right? So she's like, "So what's going on?" So I was telling her all about it, and I can use book rate, and it's all about this. I'm so excited. And her question, I don't think, was a typical response, because her question to me was immediately, "Are you going to write a second book?" Who asks that? And I was able, by that point, I'd been kind of percolating on this thought. And I
mhm.
said, actually, I am. And it's going to be called Becoming an Orphan. I
Oh,
knew the title already. Um,
yeah,
we'll take
yeah,
it.
great.
So, yeah,
I
that's how it's
remember that
connected.
with my husband, especially when both his parents died. That's exactly what he said. Oh my gosh, I'm an orphan now.
Yeah.
I don't feel that as much because my mom and dad passed, but my stepmom is still alive. So as long
Yeah.
as there's someone, you don't feel totally like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, and I had not thought of that until when my mom passed in 2012. My good friend, who's a contributor to the book, she's been a mental health professional her whole life, Valerie. She called, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks after mom had died, and she asked me, "So how are you doing being an orphan?" And it took me a second because my dad's been gone so long.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, "Oh, right." And I said, "Well, I'm fine." But that's where that term really stuck
Mhm.
in my heart and my head at that point.
Yeah. So you threw this book together to help people who are
Yep.
going through that. So let's start with how we actually help the person that we're caring for.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll back it up because we've got every age listening today. So one thing I think sometimes when parents hit, I mean, I hope not before their 60s, but sometimes, but I notice in their 60s even the kids are like, oh, we got to start thinking about taking care of mom and dad. And unless your parents at that age are having serious health issues, which can be a possibility, some people in their 60s really, we don't know how long they'll live and they're struggling already.
Right.
But most are not. They're often still working or just
Mhm.
retiring. So what's your recommendation for people in that stage where they're starting to think about the fact of,
Mm.
oh my gosh, there's going to be a day coming. I have to think about this.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's a really great question. I think the great thing is if you're already thinking about that
Mm,
ahead of time,
uh-huh.
it's going to be easier. Your path will be easier than if
Okay.
you just keep ignoring it and then some instance happens and the whole family's thrown into chaos.
Okay. So
So
having a conversation like with siblings, is that what you
I think
mean?
siblings is a good start as well. And I think the biggest thing is observation.
Mm,
And
okay.
even, even with my mom, I mean, she was past 60, but she was also very active. Now, like I said, she had some eye issues. She had macular degeneration at some level, and she was taking care of her own life. Okay, so I don't even
Uh-huh.
remember how old she was, probably late 70s. And when I'd go to visit her, we'd do errands together, but I would make sure she drove her car. I
Mm,
never said a word, but what I was observing was, is she following all the traffic signals? Is
mm,
she, following too close? Is she forgetting to signal?
okay.
Anything like that. Just observing, just
Yeah.
taking it in. And she did great. I'm like, okay, we don't have to worry about her driving right now. So I think it's the observing.
Another finances, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one thing we notice, it's really sad, but I'm going to call them creepy people, pick on elderly people that aren't necessarily super elderly, but more easily get fooled into
Yes.
scams. And I think
Mhm.
we all can get fooled. That's not an age thing.
Yes.
However, when you start noticing it, the way they handle it, being more easily giving in, more easily giving away information, or the stress level, not handling that as well, then
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a beginning signal. We're moving in that direction.
Yes. And that can even be an opportunity. At least once a week, I'll get some email and think, is this really from so and so or a company that I use, or at least once a week? And
Yeah.
but what that can be is it can be a door opener to, you get together and you're just chatting or you're on the phone and you can share your own as a younger child,
Yeah.
to say, holy cow, they're getting sneakier and sneakier, and I was almost tricked. And again, it can be an opportunity for an observation. How did they respond to that? And you probably have a sense of how much they use technology or don't.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like my mother-in-law, she has a cell phone. It's usually not charged, but she doesn't text.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
My father-in-law will text occasionally, right? And pretty much, and but anyway, it can be an opportunity to say, like, if you have an experience with potential fraud or scam, to then say, to ask some questions like,
Yeah.
so,
Have you had that?
yeah, have you had that?
I'll
Or,
deal with
are
it.
you doing
Yeah.
your banking online? Or just a customized question of, are you changing your passwords or do you have trouble with that? Or, hey, I heard about this, tool that can help you with passwords or whatever.
That's
Yeah.
making me think that another thing is to start paying more attention to, and even asking questions like, hey, well, my husband and I are going to make a will. Do you guys have a will? Where do you keep yours? Like, I
Yes.
like how you say you bring up your own, and it doesn't sound kind of like, you might die soon. Where's your will?
Right. Right. No, that's exactly. So especially if there aren't really any traumas or signs, it just you will set yourself up for success, and your parents as well, if you start thinking, observing, listening
Yeah.
to other people's stories earlier.
Yeah. And do you have a place if I needed to access your passwords, like if you're in the hospital or we all can have accidents and I
Mm-hmm.
mean you could even let them know for yourself or tell them, yeah, I told my brother where ours are so that if anything
Yep.
ever happened or my kids
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's yeah, that's good.
I did notice my mom, I appreciate that she is unusual in this. She started sorting through her house like years before. She just
Mm.
became very conscious of the fact that she didn't want to leave us with a disaster. 'Cause that is
Nice.
so stressful, you know? Yeah, it's really hard. Some of my friends, their parents, oh my gosh, they're hoarders or whatever. And it's really a burden. So I think if there's a way to like encourage, for one thing, you might want to think, how can I get my stuff out of the house?
Mm-hmm.
And then in doing that, to say, hey, mom, are there other things that I could help you sort through, or
Mm-hmm.
just to make your life less burdensome? And
Mm-hmm.
as when you do get older, you're not going to be stuck with all this stuff that's be hard to sort.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the finances too, I think again, it's the listening to not all kids and parents know each other well. There can be a lot of
Yeah, that's true.
estrangement, right?
Mm,
At the same time, the family system, still probably what's typical. But if a parent starts, well, Dan and I were going to go travel to see so and so, but the airfare is just so expensive, and it was confusing because we had to do a layover and a
hmm
two airplanes, and any of those can just be an off the cuff statement.
hmm
But listening to, okay, so are they worried about money, or are they worried about traveling is no small thing. I mean, every
No,
time I fly, I'm like, this is exhausting.
I know it's crazy now.
Oh,
It's
you
gotten
know,
worse.
yeah. And sometimes then it might be if let's say it's the confusion or the complicatedness of getting to the airport and finding the right gate and the whatever might be well, if you really want to go, do you want me to help you? Do you want me
hmm
to just get you to the airport and get you set up, or,
hmm
and have
Yeah,
so and so on the other end meet you? Would that
yeah,
help?
yeah. That's
Just
good.
to get their response, and then you're not interfering. It's just offering help.
Okay, that's great. All right, so now let's move up the age. And now we're up to a parent, whatever age they are, that does need more help, but they're not in assisted living or anything like that yet. We'll get to that one. So, yeah, what should we know about that stage of life?
Hmm.
How are we helping that person?
I think one of my guests named Betty, in the book, I have at the end of every chapter, they're called Tips from Friends, and they were quotes from the other 20 some odd people I interviewed that I didn't want to change a thing. They just encapsulated these great ideas, like
Mhm,
in the perfect words in their own voice. And
mhm.
so those are at the end of each chapter
Cool. Yeah.
based on the topic. And Betty said it was something along the lines of helping your parents at this particular stage just takes time. They move slower, they get in and out of a car slower. You may have to use a wheelchair, which is slower. The check-in at the facilities is slower. And then you got to do it all in reverse, right?
Mhm,
Even just
mhm,
getting dressed for the day, everything is slower.
mhm,
And her tip was just be prepared and be patient. And what she was able to do in her lifestyle was to go from, probably full-time work and then some, to
mhm.
moving to part-time.
Yeah, yeah, I had to
So
do
it
that
didn't
too.
stress her out as much. She could make that window of time.
Yeah, if you can. All right,
Hmm.
suppose you can't. Do you think you need to look for care? caregiver for this person or?
Well, one of my chapters is creating your team.
Okay.
And I think we often miss resources that are already built into either your parents' life or your own. So, two kind of instances to that of, so when my mom lost her driving privileges, and as I said, she ran her own life. She did her own errands. She went to cardiac rehab. She went out for
Mhm.
lunch. She went to church. She did all sorts of things, grocery shopping. I'm like, oh boy. And she lived an hour and 15 minutes one way from me.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, oh, how is this going to work? Well, I made one phone call,
Mm.
and that was she just needed help getting places, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But it's a real thing.
yeah.
I called our home church. The secretary knew me. The secretary knew my mom. My mom had been a active parishioner for 60 years. Okay. And I said, okay, I'm just calling to, is there somebody that comes to mind, or is there a ministry within the church that could help drive mom all these places? The secretary said, oh, I got this. I know exactly the person who can coordinate all this. She
Oh,
knows your
good.
mom. She can coordinate all different sorts of people and volunteers to get your mom wherever she needs to go.
Oh.
Click. So remembering what you're, and it may take, if you're not as close, it may take a little bit of digging to find, okay, what's my parent or my in-laws, what's their community,
Mhm.
who are the friends they talk about, or even my in-laws, they have relatively new neighbors, but we hear really positive stories about Mary and Chuck. There was a couple winters ago, it was very severe they live in Illinois, and they lost power for 3 days. It was
Oh, yeah.
really,
Wow.
really cold.
Oh, okay.
We didn't hear about that.
Mhm.
They didn't call us. They don't have a generator. Mary and Chuck, who live on the other side of the hedge, noticed that their lights weren't on. Well, Mary and Chuck have a generator, so they went over and kind of collected them and had them come over to the house at least for part of a day and visited with them, and they could get warm. And then
Yeah.
and my brother-in-law, who's in the same town, then took care of them. But so I made sure after that I have Mary and Chuck's phone number,
Yeah. It's true.
that
Yeah.
because they're right there. They can, in a 4-minute walk, they can be to the
Mhm.
door
Mhm.
versus an hour and 15-minute drive.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so there's that. And then sometimes there are even family members. I didn't readily think of this, but my cousin and cousin-in-law, they live in the next town from where mom was. And I think we were on vacation. Yeah, we were on vacation. And mom had a doctor's appointment she'd forgotten about to tell me or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So I called my cousin and I said, hey, sorry to do this. What's your day like? I knew she wasn't working. And like, do you think you could take mom her to this appointment and bring her home? She's like, oh, sure, not a problem.
That's cool. Yeah, there's also senior centers in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of towns.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you could give them a call and they may have a van,
Yep.
but even if they don't, they might be able to help you out with a number or there might be people who are drivers. The other thing you might do is offer to pay a young person. Like
Yes.
how would you like, I'll pay you $20 if you'll
Yep.
drive them once a week, you'll make $80,
There you go. Yeah.
and if they're in high school or college, they might welcome to have that
Yeah,
extra money.
we actually tried that for a short time because mom was struggling with a little bit mobility at home and keeping up with laundry
Hmm.
and dishes and things like that, just basic housekeeping. And for a short time, but it was a young adult who was a daughter of one of my best friends.
Hmm.
So my mom knew who she was, and vice versa. I think the girl when she was little was in mom's Sunday school class,
Hmm.
and that was exactly it. She had the time. She was willing to earn a little bit of money, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Do you know, are there national services that you can look on Google and give a
Yeah,
call and they'll let you know what's available in your area?
the one is I'm trying to
I guess you could Google services for elderly or
Well, yeah, you could. It's called ADR.
in the
And then
show
there's one
notes.
it's called Home Helpers.
Hmm.
And I should know this. I don't know if it's national.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's in the Midwest, but Home Helpers. And then there's another,
Yeah, there are those types, and that's a definite option. I think
yes.
some of them, like if they're depending on the kind of insurance they're under, might
Hmm.
cover that to a degree. So you could check with their insurance, and others don't. It depends on like their income, how much money they have, what kind of
It gets
insurance.
complicated. Yes. Yeah.
But it would be good to check. We were shocked at we had no idea how much because my dad had been in the Korean War,
Yeah.
how much help that he could get.
As a veteran.
Yeah, he was getting hearing aids,
Cool.
and he'd use them and he could still get them. And then he got money. They don't like write to you and tell you this, you know?
Uh-huh.
You just have to reach out. So if you have a parent that was in the military, even if it wasn't like he didn't have to go to Korea, right? He was in
Hmm.
Seattle or somewhere out Washington.
But
Yeah, it's
still.
amazing how much that they help.
Oh,
So if
yes.
the Veterans Association is a helpful thing too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a great point to bring up. Yeah.
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 And I don't know if AARP has anything as well.
They might.
They
Yeah.
might. So just, start Googling and, what are services to help my elderly parents, and you might find a lot of resources.
You mentioned a few minutes ago the centers for aging adults, like in your town or their town or
Uh-huh.
whatever.
Yeah. Senior
That would be a
centers
great place if it's not like they just need some help at home. It's not like they need
and activity
an
place.
activity place,
Yeah,
but they would be a good resource, I'll bet.
exactly. They would know stuff. Yeah. All right. So we're going to hit this one, and then I want us to talk about us, the ones who are taking care of our parents. So once let's say you don't choose to have them live with you, but
Mhm.
we'll get to that, but you're having them in some kind of senior
Facility.
senior living. I know for me, what helped is that I could cut back on my hours.
Mhm.
So, but not everybody has the luxury financially to do that. Think about it though. You might be able to pull it off better than you think.
Uh-huh.
It might be a little sacrificial for you, but you might think about it. Or it could be, and you only can do what you can do. So
Yes.
I think like at first I was like visiting mom twice a week after work. And then as she got brain cancer, unfortunately, and lung
Oh,
cancer at the same time
ugh.
at the end. And so once I knew that, and it was like they said 2 to 5 months, I pretty much cut way back on work. I was there pretty much every day. Again, I would do work in the morning, sometimes when I get home some more, but I work from home, so it's okay. And I travel a lot, so I did not travel during that time.
And
So
I bet you don't regret those decisions.
no, I'm
Mhm.
so glad I had, and it's not an easy time for them, but man, mom really appreciated it. And even though eventually she couldn't remember that I'd been there the day before, but
Mhm.
she still was happy. Every time I showed up, she just smiled and giggled and
Uh,
was just so happy that I was there. And it was draining, honestly, because not
yeah.
like you can have these great conversations and you really miss the person they were, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
I think with my dad, it was a little harder. One, he was so hard of hearing, nearly deaf,
Mm.
so he couldn't really talk. And yeah, some people as they get older, my mom was just as sweet as ever. My dad, who normally is that way, was a lot grouchier, because he was in a
Yeah.
lot of pain. And so
Yes.
it made it harder, I think, for
Yeah.
me.
Oh, sure.
So, let's go ahead and move to that. Like, how about us as the person who's caring for them? Okay, not talking about now the ones that, oh, I can give you a ride or blah, 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 but
Yeah. But
ones
us.
who really aren't doing very well.
Yeah.
Maybe they have dementia or
Hmm.
just they're in a lot of physical pain or And maybe they had a grumpy personality to begin with, and so once that happens, now they're really a mess. Or
Yeah, that
I
could be,
also
yeah.
know, I know both. I have a friend that her mother was always really mean and grouchy, like mean actually,
Yeah.
and she had this shift and became super sweet and nice. And so it's this beautiful time for her the last 6 months
Mm.
to just get to enjoy mom. And I've heard other friends that it went the other
The
way.
opposite. Yep.
And you like basically lose that parent that you had. So, what are some of your
Mm.
suggestions for
Mm.
caregiving in all these situations
Yes, 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 yes.
so
I
that we
think
don't go crazy?
bingo. Yeah, I think one of the comments you just made is the first thing that comes to my mind is you do what you can. You look at it as objectively as you can. It can be not only are you working full time, but you're still raising kids at home and a parent's in a facility.
Mhm.
This is what I've got. And it's just that reality check of this is the
Yeah.
time I've got. This is the energy I've got. Okay. What are some things that can go? Like you said, you didn't travel. It's
Mhm.
like this traveling cannot happen right now. You
Mhm.
can fire me if you want. This cannot happen.
Mhm.
Where you make your own boundaries, or with your kids of like, I'm sorry, I can't be at every soccer game.
Yeah.
Grandma's really important. In fact,
Mhm.
I think you're not going to be at that soccer game because you're going to come with me to go see grandma.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is going to be a lifelong lesson for them. But it's finding those boundaries, recognizing, and I think it's harder for women generally to get down to brass tacks of like, look, there are still only 24 hours in a day. And I either have to get rid of something now, and sometimes to do that, it helps to think temporarily
Yeah. True.
or yeah, temporarily. And then to leave, guilt doesn't help anybody. Feeling guilty for the fact that maybe you can't stop at the facility every day
Yeah.
after work, even
Yeah.
though it was chosen very strategically, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you just can't.
Right.
Mm. And not to feel guilty about it. And I
Yeah.
think
I was just
the
gonna say, like, I always feel like it's a crazy thing I did, but I want to throw it out there for people that towards the end, it was really rough visiting my dad, like
Mhm.
emotionally for me. And so I asked a friend of mine if she would come with me, and it's about an hour and a half away, if she would come with me to help me because one, she was amazingly patient. Her whole career was with little tiny kids,
Ah.
like 3, 4, 5 year olds. And I've seen her in action. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can never have the patience you do. And just very gentle and sweet. And for her to come in, it's not her dad. You know what I mean?
Right,
It's
it's
just
different because she
easier
doesn't
for
have that
her.
the
And
history or the
she was
connection.
so sweet to him, and she helped me like a whole drive up. I could just share why it was hard and what I was nervous about. And then she prayed for me. And then when
Mm.
I was like trying to connect with him and she'd see some things that were hard, she'd be praying. And then
Neat.
after we could talk it through in the car. So
Yes.
and I actually surprised I even forgot that, but I said something about my dad the other day, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that was such a special time." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, you came. Oh my gosh, thank you so much." So I don't think people think of that too much, but that's a
That's a
possibility.
that is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Again, so, the step 1 is you realizing this is emotionally draining. I'd kind of rather just not go see him because it's really hard, but I'm
Hmm.
not gonna do that ethically or morally or spiritually.
Hmm.
I wanna honor he's my parent, even if he's,
Yep.
not pleasant to be with, whatever.
Yep. Or
God doesn't
self
put that
care. That's self care, right?
It is, and it is, but that's a brilliant practical of asking a friend to come with, which is not in my book, but it should have been. But one of the things
Next
I
book.
yeah, the next one. The one thing though that does remind me of is that when you're coming into this season and it's starting, that and it can be temporary. They may have a really bad medical spate of things, like
Yeah.
even for a year or even 2
Mhm.
years. And
Yeah.
then you get things settled and they're like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
But when it is to find and ask a good friend, can you be my support person
Mhm.
where I can just call you, talk it through, but where I can just vent.
Yeah.
I can let you know when something's coming. But praying, going with you on that drive and supporting you and praying during your visit, even that's fantastic. And talking it through with a best friend,
Mhm.
support you ahead of time. Again, it alleviates. Oh my gosh, I am so tired. I'm so exhausted. I'm so frustrated
Yeah.
that when you're in that space, you're
Mhm.
not going to think straight enough to like how am I going to take care of myself? Unless you have somebody close by. And so, and a friend like that could also even be the person who, let's say, if you do have a parent living with you, but if dementia's entered the picture or whatever, and it's not safe to leave them, say, for
Yeah.
example,
Yeah.
that's the friend to call and say, okay, can you just come on Sunday afternoon and watch the football game with dad? Because I just got to get out of here before I lose my marbles.
Yeah, it's similar to you have a bunch of toddlers and little kids at home and you need a break.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
And
I
then
think self-care is so important. We don't think of
is
that with when we're caring for elderly parents that
right.
we have to watch it and take care of
And
ourselves, you know.
and I have a whole section in the book because I was raised in a strong Christian church and home and background, and for which I'm forever grateful. But self-care can be a hurdle because in our psyche is, oh, that's being selfish. And Christians aren't supposed to be
Yeah.
selfish.
Well, just listen to
However,
my show and you won't think that. we have a lot on this show about self-care, that
good,
being
yeah.
holistic health so that you can give your all to others, so you can give your all to your parents,
And that's the
you
whole
know.
thing. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing is
Yeah.
stewarding. And
Yeah.
the truth that kind of walked me through what would have been a landmine for me
Yeah.
is stewardship.
Mhm.
I've been given this life, and in order to invest well in reaching other people, helping, serving my parent, whatever it is,
Mhm.
if I don't take care of myself and I go down sick, or I go in to trying to help her with all sorts of baggage or no energy, or you know what, it's not going to go well.
Mhm.
It,
Yeah.
it's not going to go well. So
Yeah. I I was taking my mom to the hairdresser, right? Because she wasn't supposed to drive anymore. And so, they go in there, it takes forever. They put their head on or whatever.
yeah,
And so I looked up Starbucks near me, and there was one in walking distance. And I go, "Hey, mom, I'm going to bring you here every week. Could you treat me to a latte every week?" And partially because that point financially, especially to cut back my hours, they were kind of
yeah,
low. And she's like, "Of course." And
perfect.
so I go down, have my latte, time it, and then come back. And then I look forward to it. And what's really funny is she starts saying, "How often you get your hair cut?" I go, "Oh, every 2 months." "Well, this one's on me." And
Ah,
so she
sweet,
she offered, which,
sweet.
that saves you a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, just stuff. Yeah,
Sue, I
just
think you should have written this book. That's beautiful, because what I was going to add about self-care is it doesn't have to be like a whole weekend away or something like
right.
huge. That you were walking, you were out of the space, you got something you enjoyed, but then the brilliance of that is pulling her into the process so that she feels like, I mean, most people, I think more people than not, want to feel like they're paying their way,
Yes, they do.
especially for their children. Doesn't matter how
hmm
old we are.
Yes.
That was brilliant.
Yeah,
And it
I
can be,
I did that all the time. Like, I one thing we did, they had croquet at her retirement place, and she couldn't. She was in a wheelchair by then and everything. And so I invited the grandkids and my husband and I, and we had a croquet outing at her place, put her on the side watching us, and
Uh-huh.
she loved it. I
Oh,
mean,
cool.
yeah, it just being included, kind of what you're
Yes,
saying,
being
even though
included.
she couldn't do it. And I
Mhm.
also used to push her up around all the paths around the place in a
Neat.
wheelchair. I mean, I'd be sweating bullets,
Yeah,
but I would get a really good workout because it's very hilly.
there you
And
go.
she loved it. And she's a flower person. So I'd
Ah,
stop and every flower, I'm like, Mom, what kinds is she couldn't remember, but she's like, oh, I used to have those. And, they tell the stories. So, yeah, I mean, try to think, are there things that you can do, like driving home from her place? It was a different route than I normally get to take. She lived
uh-huh.
nearer than my dad because they were split up from the time I was a kid. I went right by this place called the Nut Head, and it was a whole shop of nuts and also coffee and tea. And I'm like, all right, this is great. I'm going to visit Mom. And on the way home, I'm going to the Nut Head.
I'm
So see,
stopping. That's right.
it helps you, like, I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like, be
It
kind of
puts
more
a
motivated or
yeah,
positive.
it's like a positive framework
Yeah,
around it. Yeah.
yeah.
And they can be like simple things like that. It can be going to a park, like a
Taking place. Yeah.
beautiful space that you like taking a walk there, or whatever it is that you love doing, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
But keep in mind, like, I thought for sure we have a place called Longwood Garden. It's very famous. People come from all over the country. And she loved that place, but I waited too long, So by the time I asked her, she just, and even going to church, it just got
Was
too difficult.
too hard. It was too much energy going out for her. Mhm.
Yeah, to be around all these people, she couldn't remember their names or they get too tired. So,
Mm,
but don't push people beyond their
no,
limits. Like,
exactly.
so when I'm sharing, like, take care of yourself, blah, blah, but not at their expense, it
No.
has to be something that they enjoy too. But,
Yes.
but it's good for them if you can get them out or change
Change their environment, so to speak.
environment, not
Yeah,
really
because
routine. Don't
it's
change your routine. They don't like that, but
no, but it
yeah.
stimulates their mind, and that's a good thing. I'm rethinking even just right this while we're talking. My mother-in-law and father-in-law's birthdays are pretty close together. So we were we set up with I called, I said, well, David and I will just come down for cake and gifts, and they offered to get the cake. I'm like, great, go for it, because you guys have a good source for cakes and we do not. And then my mother-in-law asked, so here or at your place? And I'm like, we've always just been saying at their house, because there's this anyway weird dynamic with my father-in-law driving, and my mother-in-law gets so stressed that she's like wigged out. And so, but at the same time, I'm like, now my brother-in-law and sister-in-law live in the same town. And maybe it would be hey, I don't know if I'd do it this time, because changing the plan doesn't always work. But to change their environment is like, well, they drive to town,
Mm.
still. So yeah, but keeping them stimulated, or finding the other thing. Gosh, I'm rambling on here, but especially even so, your mom wasn't able physically to participate in some things, and sometimes that can come up in dementia. There's a story in my book of a woman who she and her parents bought a house. She was single. She and her parents bought a house where they all lived together, and she could do her work from the house, her art from the house. But anyway, her dad had dementia really badly, used to love to fish. So what she figured out is she and her sister would take dad for a drive in the car by the lake, the
Mm.
same environment.
Hmm.
And that can be a really great, and you took your mom on a walk, but the flowers, you knew she loved flowers.
Right.
And so it's something that they connect to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we could go on forever, but I know you have a doctor's appointment. So
I do.
I want to be sensitive to that. But tell us the full name of your book. Of course, we'll put it in the show notes, but go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you. So it's called Becoming an Orphan, A Caregiver's Guide to Lovingly Letting Our Parents Go.
Great. And your
And
name is Ingrid Hanson-Popp.
yes.
All right. That's awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes. But any final words that you want to share of encouragement for our fans?
I think it's
His
kind of where we opened, and that is, but I'll give one little extra bit, and that is when your parents start needing help, don't be surprised that it throws the entire family system, which can be your siblings, it can be,
Mm,
the spouses, whoever's involved, can be your own kids. If you're still raising them at home, like, Mom, why are you never here? Like, I never see you. You're always at grandma's. Rawr.
yeah, that's true.
So it affects the whole family system. But the reason is because the relationship with our parents is completely and ultimately unique. And losing them is completely unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, even if it's not your birth mom and dad, if you were
Mhm.
adopted, if you're fostered, it's the person who raised you and influenced you and shaped you like no one else did. Which, as a friend of mine brought up recently, a lot of times now we're having grandparents raising grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have that same sense of loss.
Right.
And that's why it's so emotional. That's why everybody gets wigged out,
Yeah.
emotional and stressed. And just be aware that it's a thing. And it's because it's so unique and it's so close, and that you can thrive. It doesn't have to always be striving and pushing and arguing. And a lot of times it's stepping back from one of the best pieces of wisdom my friend Valerie brought to the book is, you think that you know how you're going to respond to, let's say, Mom has a terrible cancer diagnosis and she has 3 months to live. You're waiting for the doctor's report, and you think you know how you're going to respond to that. You're pretty sure how each of your siblings is going to respond to that, but you don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It can be completely opposite.
Yeah.
And to just give that space and that grace to the people in your family, maybe their MO is, I don't want to deal with this and I'm going over here.
Yeah. That happens a lot.
That's their choice.
Yeah.
And you can always, do you want me to keep you informed? I'll keep you in the loop if you'd like.
Yeah.
And let people, but it's tricky because we think we know our families. And in a lot of circumstances, we guess right. But it
Yeah.
seems like in this,
It can bring things out, like
it
the
sure
worst in
does.
people, sadly.
Mhm.
And then you
Yeah.
get into all the financial aspect, and when all the burden's put on you, or you're putting it on them because they live near the person and you're a flight
Uh-huh.
away, and then they get bitter, and yeah, it gets messy. So I'll just close with, hey, praise God. We have God, that we have
Yes.
prayer, that we have the Holy Spirit. And it might be a calling on your life to be very sacrificial
Mhm.
at that time in your life and surrender, but know that God's going to teach you through that.
Yes.
And we think about our Lord Jesus. Well, he was pretty sacrificial.
Exactly.
And those last 3 years were no party for him,
Right.
but he did that, and the fruit of what came out of that. And we can say the same thing for the apostles, the fruit that came out of that sacrificial living.
Yeah.
And they didn't, like, wig out on, to use your phrase, I like that, wig out, haven't heard that in a while. Wig out on, the other, well, why aren't you, starting a church or whatever? They
Yeah.
just did it. And God, that's my encouragement to everybody, is live as Christ would live through this, trust in him, and demonstrate the beauty of the Lord, the
Yes.
spiritual fruit, because you will be rewarded, if not on this earth,
Yeah.
but in heaven. And it does make a difference to your parents.
It does. It
Yeah.
does make a difference to them. Yep.
Yeah.
Dementia or any circumstance,
Yes.
whether they can express it or do express it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that being willing to sacrifice, it is, and trusting your peace, where your peace tends to fall in the tapestry of that surrender. I have a story in the book of, it was like it was like a switch that flipped for me. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go to the resentment place. My siblings weren't around. They weren't, they
They all
were
had
interested,
stuff.
but they weren't around.
Mm.
And I got the blessings.
Yeah.
I got the blessings of a lot of last moments that were just so sweet. I have tears back here, which I'm going to stop. But yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Good
Well,
encouragement.
thank you, Ingrid. This was really
Thanks.
cool. And our application of this time is really think who can benefit. I mean, yourself can listen again to this, but if you're not in that situation, you very well know people who are. And
Yes.
so recommend, like I just had a friend tell me her husband has to fly from Pennsylvania to California to be with his dementia mom who doesn't even know he's there or who he is, but he does it like once
Wow.
a month or something. I thought, oh, maybe I should send this episode to her. So yeah, you all can just let people know that this could encourage and help and bless. So
That's why I
thank you
wrote it.
so much. Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate that. This is really meaningful. So y'all
Thanks.
have a great time this week and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for being a part of our community and tuning in. We would love to hear from you. Submit your own questions or comment on today's episode on the Crown of Beauty International Facebook group or email us at crownofbeautyinternational@gmail.com. Push that subscribe button and leave us a review. Come back next Thursday as we go deeper into His heartbeat.